The Holy Gospel, according to Luke here, begins by his recognition of the eyewitnesses, those who were with our Lord from the beginning, and handed them on. For us to ask, when in life have we been eyewitnesses? What is it that we have seen? Further, what is the most remarkable thing we have ever seen? What has been the most, we might even say, incredible or unbelievable event to happen before our eyes? To be an eyewitness. Sort of thought about that in light of this gospel. Because there are things, events, that I personally know to be true, 100%, because I've seen them with my own eyes. I was there. But among which, there are certain things that I've seen that I think could be rather hard to believe. I think we all have events like this. It's how we introduce recounting of an event when you say, "You won't believe this, but..." And I have one of those. I was reminded of. It's a story, an event that involves a mouse. So growing up, my absolute favorite place in the world was my aunt's cabin. It's in Danbury, Wisconsin, a 26 Lake 26 it's called. And how I loved that cabin, that lake. Just how reminiscent, so many memories of traveling to the cabin. And I'd spend hours and hours, full days, with my dad in this 12-foot rowboat, anchored down, fishing. And that boat in particular, it was stored upside down year-round on the shore. Well, one of the trips when I was in middle school, my dad and I flipped over the boat, got the oars, we began making our way across the bay to the fishing spot. But after a short while, my dad noticed that a little critter had made its home in this rowboat. This little critter was a mouse, and every so often, it would get up on the ledge of this rowboat and scurry along the edge. My dad there in the back, me in the front. And now I am utterly terrified of rodents and critters. Mice, bats, I want to be as far away as possible. Well, eventually, my dad, he came to the rescue, essentially. And the mouse got back on that ledge. He quickly swiped it, knocking it off into the water. What I learned then was that mice swim. I didn't realize this. I'd never seen it. This mouse began swimming on the surface of the water, just a little wake behind. And so we're watching it, and that's somewhat remarkable in itself, a mouse swimming. It's not the typical sight. So we're watching it, and I kid you not, just a few feet from reaching shore, big splash, and this mouse was engulfed, swallowed. And That, even further, is quite peculiar. One might say, really? Did that happen? I saw it with my own eyes. But further, the next day, we went to that same spot. I was there fishing. And I caught this fish. And I put it in our fish basket. It's live well on the side of the boat. And then made our way back to the dock, put that fish basket there, went up for lunch, came down to pull up the basket with the fish, and inside the basket was a regurgitated mouse. That, you could say, Father Paul, there's no way that happened. But I know. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. And the thing is, I could share the story day after day after day till I die. And it's up to others whether they believe it or not. For me, I know. Come to this question, how do you and I know that Jesus walked this earth? How do we know that he worked miracles? How do we know that this man was crucified, died, and was buried in the tomb? And most ultimately, how do we know that this tomb was found empty and that this man indeed rose from the dead? It's because of eyewitnesses. People who were actually there with him, who saw with their own eyes, who heard with their own ears. Right above me, I think of St. Peter, a wonderful statue of Peter, an eyewitness from the beginning, one who walked with Jesus, ate with him, learned from him. And it's St. Peter in one of his letters, he writes, "We do not believe in some fairy tale, cleverly devised myths." St. Luke here writes, for his gospel, eyewitnesses from the beginning have handed down the events to us. And Luke, he goes even further. He says, investigating everything accurately anew, I'm putting the life of Jesus into writing. Our faith is founded in history, concrete events that people saw and heard, witnessed, so that, as St. Luke writes, we might realize the certainty of the teachings we have received. He records these. And this is why we are able to believe.